There's one.
You already watch. I'm gonna react to the night the Naoya Insui problem.
Problem with Naoya Inoue.
He's
Inoue.
too good. Just a couple days ago at the time of this recording, Naoya Inoue put a vicious beatdown on Paul Butler. It was a masterclass performance and domination from start to finish, and even though it wasn't a flash KO like Naoya Inoue usually does, it was an absolutely beautiful display of body shots that we don't see too often. The knockout...
Those body shots, it could hurt. I ain't gonna lie. Them body shots could hurt. It could break your ribs. All that. It could break you, bro. And that shit could break you up. I ain't gonna lie.
Wasn't really necessarily
a knockout. It was more so Paul Butler succumbing to the relentless body shots of Naoya Inoue, and he basically couldn't get up from pure exhaustion. Naoya Inoue has completely ran through the top of the 118-pound bantamweight division, and with the Paul Butler finish, he has now finished 4 of the top 10 contenders according to Ring Magazine. He knocked out Emmanuel Rodriguez, the #1 contender, with a vicious onslaught of body shots. As for the #2 contender, he would finish Jason Maloney with a nasty right hand straight down the middle. As for the 3rd ranked contender,
It looked like you broke his nose, bro, with that punch.
Nonito Donaire.
Inoue would finish him in the 2nd round in their rematch. And like previously mentioned, the finish of Paul Butler would add the 6th ranked contender to a pretty good list of opponents in the 118-pound division. Up until this point, most of his fights against these top guys in the division have been relatively uncompetitive. The one time Inoue was in a competitive fight with a top guy in the division, it was Nonito Donaire, and in their fight, we really thought that he found his match because it went the distance, and Donaire did find his moments often throughout the fight and even cut Inoue. So at the time, most people thought that Inoue had finally found his match in Donaire. But in their rematch, like mentioned before, Inoue would stop Donaire early in the 2nd round and basically demolish any potential of a rivalry. So with Inoue's dominance in the 118-pound division, there comes one big problem with that. He's actually too good for his benefit. What Inoue has is what we UFC fans call the Mighty Mouse problem. I would recommend checking this video out on Demetrius Johnson, aka Mighty Mouse, but basically he was one of the most overlooked greats of the UFC. Like Inoue, Demetrius Johnson dominated the lower weight class. In this case, it was the UFC's 125-pound division and had highlight finishes and basically no competition at the time. His only losses during these prime years were to all-time greats in Henry Cejudo and Dominic Cruz, with the Henry Cejudo fight being very, very close, and one could argue that that close decision could have went to Mighty Mouse. But despite this dominance in his division, the highlight finishes, and also him being consistently a top pound-for-pound fighter, nobody really watched his division and nobody really watched cards that were headlined by Mighty Mouse. So in a very weird and rare moment for the UFC and Dana White, they traded him to ONE FC for Ben Askren, even though he was still at the top of his game. So if we go back to boxing, you're probably wondering, what does this mean for Inoue? Well, the parallels are really hard to ignore. Both guys are dominating a smaller, non-competitive division that most casuals aren't watching. And though they are routinely getting highlight finishes, this may not be enough to keep their names in relevancy.
Basically, like, there's no competition for them, bro. There's really no, like, competition.
See, if Inoue continues
to dominate a division that seems to not give him the proper competition, his fate is destined to be the same as Mighty Mouse's, an all-time great that will be forgotten and overlooked. So how can Inoue prevent the Mighty Mouse problem? Well, there is only one solution, and it's to move up. So obviously the point of moving up is to get a new challenge and hopefully find a competitive fight. But if he moves up, specifically, who are the guys that can give Inoue that competitive fight and that tough challenge? So the next weight class up is the super bantamweight / junior featherweight division, which is at 122 pounds. So let's look at a couple guys in this division that could possibly give Inoue his toughest challenge or can even beat him. So I asked you guys on my community tab on which fighters in different weight classes could potentially beat Inoue. And the large majority of you guys said Stephen Fulton Jr. He is the current #1 ranked 122-pound fighter, and he is a very slick and sharp boxer. He is your typical ring general with very high IQ, and he can pick apart his opponents with his great jab and distance management. But if I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys, I just don't see it. I think a lot of other guys in the 122-pound division have a better chance stylistically against Naoya Inoue, and though Stephen Fulton is very, very skilled, Inoue is a stylistic nightmare for Fulton. See, I think the style that Fulton struggles the most with, at least, is the style that he struggled with in 2 of his toughest fights, are high pressure fighters. For some reason, when Fulton gets into a brawl, he chooses to stand and bang, and he got caught huge by a right hand by Leo, and in his fight against Brandon Figueroa, Figueroa was extremely effective in his aggression, and had he not been caught so much by...
Look at his face. Look, zoom. Like, yo, bro, look at his face. Face looks mad wet. I ain't gonna lie. Funny. He looks mad funny with that face.
Fulton and was a little
more defensively responsible, he probably could have won that fight considering how much he landed in the inside. And it's weird because Fulton has the tools to keep pressure fighters like Figueroa and Leo off of him, but for some reason he chooses to stand and bang with these pressure fighters, which leads him to get caught a lot when his back is against the ropes, and he doesn't necessarily prioritize circling off of the ropes and getting back to the middle. And considering Inoue is very effective at cutting out the ring and also putting on that pressure, if Fulton chooses to stand and bang with Inoue, I think Inoue is going to get the better of him, and that power might take him out. And maybe a lot of people may say, well, what about the size difference? I don't think Fulton is that much bigger than Inoue. He's about maybe 1.5 inches or 2 inches taller, and technically he should be around...
Steven's my height. He's the same height as me, 5'7".
4 pounds heavier.
But I don't think it's enough to deal with Inoue's power and high pressure, and I ultimately think Inoue still gets it done, even though he's moving up to a different weight class. Now, another guy I saw in the community poll was Mirajan Akhmadaliev. He's a move-forward guy like Inoue, and they're about the same size at 5'5". He has pretty solid power and good precision with his punches, but similar to Fulton, he gets caught a lot in exchanges, if not more than Fulton. This was shown in his fight against Jose Velasquez and Daniel Roman, but he tends to move forward without any defensive responsibility, and if Inoue were to fight him, I think his power will carry on to 122, and with Inoue's great and underrated timing, he could catch MJ coming in. And finally, the last guy I want to talk about in the 122-pound division is Brandon Figueroa, who I personally would pick to give Inoue his toughest fight and could potentially actually beat him as well. Even though Figueroa lost to Fulton, I think stylistically he matches up much better to Inoue than Fulton. He is a very high-pressure guy with a solid chin, and he is much bigger than Fulton, meaning he's also much bigger than Inoue as well. He has an insane 72.5 reach, which is much longer than Inoue's, and he could exploit Inoue's weak spot, which is fighting off the back foot. Donaire had a lot of success with backing up Inoue and forcing him to fight with his back against the ropes and out of his comfort zone. I think this is what led to Donaire landing that nasty hook over Inoue's right eye that would cause him the most damage he'd ever seen in a fight.
Have him leaking, bro, I ain't gonna lie. Have something leaking, blood trickling down his face.
So with Figueroa's
giant size advantage and high pressure style, he'll definitely give Inoue a huge test by forcing him to fight in an uncomfortable position relative to his style. But I still think that Inoue's underrated boxing skills and great timing will probably still allow him to take this fight. In a very close fight nonetheless though. So even though these top guys at 122 pounds would give Inoue a tougher test than 118, I still think Inoue beats most of the guys at 122, if not all of them. I think the real challenge would be his move to 126 if he could. Those guys are very talented and much bigger. You have Emmanuel Navarrete, Ray Vargas, and my personal favorite, Mark Masayo. I'm not going to go into a deep analysis like I did at 122 pounds, but these guys at 126 are not only bigger, but they possess the skill to beat Inoue as well. We can do all the speculation that we want, but ultimately Inoue needs to move up in weight class and fight better competition. Because if he doesn't, his fate is going to be so similar to Mighty Mouse's, and his greatness might be forgotten and overlooked. So what do you guys think? Is Inoue going to continue to stay at 118?
That's it, bro. Yeah, bro. Like, this is my first time ever hearing about Inoue, bro. My first time ever hearing about Inoue, and he said and he said he's too good and all that shit. I mean, like, he seems like he don't have no competition, bro. Like every opponent he go up against, he beats them, bro. On his you know, like the dudes that's like his, like, you know, like height and shit, who is in his weight, you know. Like he should move up. So yeah, cause every opponent, like, he fought, he beat them, he spanked them. You are. So yeah, make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Y'all know the vibes. Whatever y'all just checking out, you are.